The Auditor General's report for the financial year 2017-2018, as required by law, will be submitted to Parliament at the end of the month. The report is specifically a catalogue of wastage, theft, and in other instances, embezzlement of funds in the central and local governments. An analysis of audits for the last 9 financial years shows a growing trend in local governments, districts, town and municipal councils, which bungled more than 128 billion Uganda shillings in dubious deals alone, but officials warn the situation could be worse than reported. Abim district in northeastern Uganda is your archetypal dysfunctional local government, teeming with sick health facilities, crumbling schools, unpaved roads, and yet it seems inundated by even a much bigger crisis: corruption. The district's council late last week censured all its executive committee members, accusing them of corruption and incompetence and failure to monitor implementation of government programs. This has affected service delivery in the wake of an ongoing scandal of officials misappropriating 36 million shillings provided by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. As one of the districts recovering from decades of instability in northern Uganda, Abim relies heavily on funding by donor agencies to fill the void left by government. The UNFPA money in question was meant for family planning, immunization, outreaches, and other health-related programs. Abim was thrown into the spotlight in 2015 December during presidential campaigns when the opposition party FDC candidate Dr. Kiza Besije visited a referral hospital in the district and cast its sick status to the rest of the country. The visit prompted government to hastily move to renovate the hospital. However, the Auditor General's report showed that the renovation exercise was marred with irregularities. Name any local government entity, district, municipal and town councils and sub-counties and check the Auditor General's report of NAR and you will stumble upon the same findings: misappropriation and mismanagement of funds, understaffing, unaccounted or stocking of expired medicine, under collection of local revenues, and absorption of allocated monies. Paper this graft galore. The recurring anomalies are undoubtedly to blame for the failed service delivery in most parts of the country, and likewise sank the country into an economic tailspin. But according to Godfrey Mutabazi, the president of the Uganda Local Government Association, there is more corruption at the central government than in local governments.
First of all, we need to realize that local governments are basically underfunded. About 12 to 15 years ago, we used to be at least 34%. We used to receive funding from central government of up to tune of about 34%. We are currently underfunded up to a tune of 12%, actually below that. And we have been advocating for an increment up to a tune of at least 38%. So before we go into the corruption, before we go into we need to realize that local governments are the basics of service delivery.
Like a chronic ailment annually, the IGG, the Attorney General and the PPDA issue damning reports detailing the corruption galore in central and local governments. However, the culprits largely go unpunished, which emboldens them and others to continue stealing funds. For example, the Attorney General's report for the last financial year 2016-2017 showed that in 76% of districts and municipal councils, 4.5 billion shillings was not properly accounted for as a result of mismanagement or poor record keeping, while in 141 districts and municipal councils, 45 billion was irregularly incurred as domestic arrears outside the approved estimates appropriated by Parliament. Medicines and health supplies were not accounted for, yet health facilities experienced persistent stockouts for months, while some 40 health facilities had not disposed of expired medicines. The audit of 111 districts, 22 municipal councils and 174 town councils in the preceding financial year 2015-2016 revealed irregular payment of 11 billion shillings in overpayment, wrongly paid salaries, and unsupported pension payments, irregular procurements amounting to 27 billion shillings, 3.8 billion was unaccounted for, and a collection of revenues amounting to 17 billion shillings, among other anomalies. The Inspector General of Government, Irene Mulyagonja, said they record an average of 100 to 150 corruption cases in local governments every financial year, with procurement taking the lead as a result of the bureaucratic process involved.
I cannot say that the numbers have been increasing. The numbers have been steady around 120 to 150. The reasons, first of all, the procurement processes are very bureaucratic. Now, when you have a system that is extremely bureaucratic, that has too many steps, the number of steps you have, right now, the steps that we have are about 3. You have the calling for bids, that is one step. Then you have this process where you weed out whether a bid is complies to the requirements of the bid or not. That is the second. Then you have the one where the evaluation committee evaluates the bids and comes out with the best evaluated bidder on the basis of the technical bid. Then you have the other process, which is on the basis of the financial, and then finally the award. There is contract negotiation, then the bid, eventually the contract is signed. But before the contract is signed, depending on the value of the contract, there is also that process where the contract is taken to the office of the Solicitor General. And I think now it's contracts which are above 200 million must all go to the Solicitor General. Now, you are talking contracts from local governments, but maybe those from local governments, not many of them get to Solicitor General, but the ones in central government, a large number of contracts go to the office of the Solicitor General, for the Solicitor General to either approve or disapprove the signing of the contract. So in such a process, in such a multiplicity of processes, you are likely to have loopholes where people will maneuver to see that their bid is the one that carries the day, and that they eventually are the ones that get the job. We have systems in this country which they don't work as well as expected. They don't work as well as expected. And when systems don't work as well as expected, because we have all these laws and so on, and I've said that the law itself is the one that defeats, it defeats itself by having too many processes that then lead to loopholes where people can pass to subvert the implementation of the law. So I think those are the reasons why we have so much fraud in procurement.
According to the IGG's findings, Kampala is followed in corruption cases by Lira, Jinja, Arua, Kabarole, Kamuli, Iganga, Mbale, Mukono, and Tororo districts. An analysis for the past 9 financial years shows that procurement irregularities top the list of anomalies in local governments, district, municipal, and town councils, followed by purported and non-remittance of collected revenues to Uganda Revenue Authority and diversion of funds. The analysis done by Crane Analytics, a data intelligence and data visualization firm, indicates that 2 billion shillings was bungled in irregular procurements in the financial year 2006 and 2007, 3.7 billion in 2007 and 2008, 14 billion in 2008 and 2009, and 34.4 billion in 2009 and 2010. Between the financial years 2006, 2007 and 2014 and 2015, irregular procurements were highest in Kampala district. In 2009 and 10, ostensibly towards the transition to Kampala Capital City Authority, 34 billion shillings was reported as mismanaged by the audit of 2009-2010, but it gradually dropped to 23 billion in 2010-2011 and to 9 billion in 2011-2012. In total, more than 128 billion was bungled, particularly in dubious and flouting of procurement regulations. The analysis of the data shows that among municipalities, Mbale topped the list with irregular procurements, followed by Jinja, Mbarara, Fort Potro, Soroti, and Lira. Among district local governments over the 9 financial years covered, Kalangala topped the list of procurement flaws, followed by Bujiri, Maracha, Bulisa, Maracha Terego, Busia, Bundibujo, and others followed suit. In his State of the Nation address in June, President Museveni wondered why he and the other central government officials should be harassed for service delivery, yet there is no part of Uganda where there is no branch of government.
Therefore, I'm going to write a directive in the form of a circular letter to all this galaxy of officials to ensure that all the services in their area are delivered properly. The Chief Administrative Officer in the district is the permanent secretary of the government in the district. All his workers, the Gombara chiefs and the Miruka chiefs, should not allow anything to go wrong in their areas of responsibility. I will create an inspection unit in my office, State House. If they go to an area and there's anything wrong, that official and the cow will be held responsible.
Months later, it remains unclear whether the district monitoring unit commenced work, nor has the anti-corruption unit headed by former Uganda National Teachers Union General Secretary James Tweheyo publicly reported any progress in their new assignment. It is as a result of the recurrent anomalies that most districts and municipal and town councils show dysfunctional types with sick health facilities, crumbling schools, unpaved roads, rotting police stations. The Director for Local Government in the Audit General's Office, John Henry Muyimbwa, described the corruption levels in their 121 districts, 41 municipalities, 330 town councils, 124 divisions, and 1,463 sub-counties in the country as a cyclic pattern.
That the pattern is that this year, if you focus much on this item, the subsequent year, you see a declining pattern. Then the subsequent year, then it goes back. So it has always been a kind of a cyclic pattern. That's what, on most of the items.
But as the Attorney General's reports continue to highlight squandering, plundering, and misspending of public money outside approved plans, there is belief that the situation could be worse because of some levels of sophistication. The Deputy Director for Local Government in the AG's office, Frederick Acheire, said they plan to conduct a trend analysis of all anomalies captured to get a clear picture of the extent of corruption.
I think we are realizing that having a trend analysis can have a value addition in our processes. For example, if we are reporting on unaccounted for advances, how are we tracking this problem? Is it on the decline? Is it on the increase? And so on and so forth. That is something we need to think about, and we are going to do it.
But like the IGG indicated, it is the bureaucratic process in bringing the culprits to book which frustrates the ongoing fight against graft. This perhaps explains the inaction on recommendations by audit reports, and in other instances why perpetrators usually receive slaps on the wrist, which is emboldening officials to continue siphoning funds. Secretary to the Treasury Keith Mohakanizi has in the past threatened to sack incompetent accounting officers, from permanent secretaries to district officers, but in vain. The Ministry of Finance spokesperson Jim Mugunga, however, says there have been attempts to reprimand officials implicated in graft. Yet officialdom practice and meetings are not enough to stamp out corruption, Uganda's Achilles heel that has afflicted its moral fabric.